Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, a show that will help you transform your marketing from mere messaging to programs that break the rules and make a difference. Join the movement today and learn non-traditional techniques that give you an edge. Now, here's your Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
My guest today is Dan Little, head of North American marketing for Shell Retail. Dan's been at Shell since 1983. That is, by the way, Dan, that's a long time. Congratulations on just the duration of that.
Thanks, Drew. It goes quick.
So we're going to be talking about gasoline, which is something, by the way, we've never covered on Renegade Thinkers Unite. And Dan and I have just had an interesting conversation behind the scenes as we were talking about this amazing rewards program that they've developed and launched, and it's rather extensive. Dan, one of the things that we talked about was first just looking at your target. Can you talk a little bit about the segmentation of the gas customer? Because it's like everybody, but how do you segment your target?
Yeah, no, it's an important question to us as marketers because we always talk about the customer, and I always say, wait a minute, there isn't just the customer. It's which customers are we talking about? And of course, there's a million different segmentations out there that are all appropriate for their use, but we use a segmentation around how do consumers choose a brand that they use or a series of brands that they use. And we use a number of different factors. And then there's an analog where we get down to, okay, well, and we like I said, there's 6, and there's 3 that specifically Shell is targeting. And that is a quality believer, and that's somebody who really does believe there's a difference in fuels and purchases primarily on the quality of the fuel and the performance of the fuel and how they perceive that. And then second, and a very large, and probably one of the more growing, largest and the most growing segment is what we call road warriors. And there's a lot of subsegments of this, but these are people who drive a lot. Some are professional drivers, but some are soccer moms. But as they're driving, their primary driver for how they choose a fuel brand is convenience. Want consistency of an experience, so think about the convenience store, the restrooms, but quality is important to them. Price, again, in neither of those two, price are the first and primary driver. And then the third one that we focus on is what we call reward seekers. And I think that one speaks for itself, but people that are going to join, first and foremost, reward programs, like to collect points and coupons, and that will drive their behavior. Now, in all 6 of the segments that we use, there's a component of how do they feel about the quality of the fuel, how do they feel about the convenience, the experience at the site, etc., all the way to price. But it's how those are weighted for those that determine where a consumer sits on the continuum. Now, the three that we focus on represent over 60% of the U.S. driver population. So that's our target, but they are very different.
Yeah, and one of the things that have come up on the show a lot, and I admire about marketers that do this well, is such easy to understand descriptions. I talked to someone in the travel industry, and they talked about the folks that must travel, and then there are the folks that lust for travel. And it's such a great way of thinking about the target audience. And then I think episode number 2 with Lee Applebaum of Patron, he talked about his 2 targets. They're just great descriptions. So anyway, lesson number 1, listeners, is understand your target, understand and segment is important. So now and one thing I do want to add is that I didn't know this, and this is really interesting. So Shell has 14,000 stations, gas stations, but they don't own any of them. And they're in all 50 states, and they're the only brand, in fact, of the national brands that are in there. So you are the dominant brand in the category, but you don't actually own the retail experience, which is ought to be pretty tricky. So building loyalty is often based on the experience that's provided on a localized basis. So attacking loyalty must have been an interesting thing to think about at Shell.
No, for sure. So, our strategy is more loyal customers, and we do that by focusing in on those three segments I talked about and making sure we have what we position as differentiated fuel products and communicating those to the right consumers that value those. But historically, our loyalty programs have been around payment cards, right? So maybe people in the past had a Shell branded card, and that's where they went. But as the industry evolved, especially in the U.S., we had to recognize we had to find a way to make our customers stickier, to understand them better, to serve their different needs better. And that was about a one-to-one relationship, and that's where loyalty and the concept of loyalty came in.
Let me interrupt you for a second, because this is it's really interesting. We were talking about loyalty programs the other day, and we were just talking about airlines and how I'm an American guy and she was a United guy, and it's just the way you're sort of locked in. I suspect it isn't quite that way in the gas station business. I mean, I suspect there are, you have a series of brands that are acceptable and maybe some that aren't, and then it comes down to which one was on the right side of the street and which one, is in your work path or your normal path, and then there might be the price decision. So it must be actually getting someone to regularly to make to go across the street, right, to a different station or make a left turn instead of right turn. Is you really have to put a pretty big proposition in their hands, right? I mean, it's not just hey, earn some points at the local grocery store. This has got to be some kind of big value.
No, that's exactly right. So, I mean, less than 20% of the population are truly loyal to a single brand. And the rest of the 80% have a consideration set. And of course, the consideration set of brands are different for those different segments that we talked about. But if you're in one of those three that I talked about, you might, if you're not one of those 20% that are loyal to Shell all the time, right, you might be buying Shell when it's convenient, and you might be buying another major brand that you think is as good a quality, or perceived that way, when that's convenient. And so, of course, then the role of our loyalty program is to get them to make one more right turn instead of a left turn, right? Give them one more reason to be a bit stickier to the Shell brand. And we find, over 5 years of having a true loyalty program in the marketplace, we find that absolutely works. Surprise, loyalty works. And that we see new members coming in, whether they were existing customers or new to Shell customers, and increasing their frequency of purchase at Shell on a monthly basis significantly. Not only that, now getting back to our independent dealers, what we see is it drives not only fuel sales, it drives in-store convenience retail sales for our dealers at their sites, which is a big part of the proposition for our dealer network as well.
You've been listening to another great interview on Renegade Thinkers Unite with Drew Neiser. But the value doesn't end there. As a listener, you can download a free ebook from Drew, Renegade Thinkers, interviews with 11 trailblazing CMOs any business can learn from. Top marketing thought leaders and proven executives from Time Warner, American Express, and Chico's, and others. Get your free copy at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook. For listeners only at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook.
So you launch Instant Gold status, and we talked about, first of all, the pilot program that you did to help refine it. And I thought it was really interesting when we talk about pilot programs, talk about what your going in expectations were for the program, and then sort of what you learned as a result of this of the test.
Well, because we don't operate the retail sites ourselves, it presents at least two different challenges, and one is the economics of loyalty, right? So you have to get a certain uplift in order to pay for the benefits and the value you're putting into the loyalty offer. And being a supplier, being the brand and the supplier, but not the operator of the site where a lot of the value and the margin is created, that can be a challenge. So number one, we had to go out and prove to ourselves the uplift that we need to create the value, to have an ROI on a program like this exist. That was one thing that we were able to do. And then the second is to break through the awareness and understanding barriers that you have in loyalty programs to get conversion. What we're seeking to do is take the conversion rates that we had in the past and triple them. We want to triple the penetration that we have of our loyalty program. And to do that, we said we're going to have to do something we never have done before. And that is reach out and involve our wholesalers and retailers, site staff. And so now we're talking about 150 to 200,000 employees across those 14,000 sites, and get them involved in building awareness, excitement, and conversion. Actually register consumers at the Shell sites. And we've never done that before. And that meant building training. It meant building reporting, incentive programs, and contests to build that excitement. And so we put together road shows where we went out, and we actually went out and 300 different road shows to address our site staff that represent the Shell brand, even though those are our employees. And so that was really big and different for us. It was a concept. We piloted it down in the Southeast in a number of states, and we got it to the point where we knew we were getting the type of understanding coming out of that, doing role play and everything else, that people could go out and get excited and sell the program.
So, and you had said your loyalty program accounted for, I think, 10%, and your goal was to get it up to 30% of your customers. That is a phenomenal increase. And did you have any, other than sheer raw ambition, did you have any sort of basis of reality that said you could actually get there?
Yeah. So, we actually have a coalition program in Canada called Air Miles. Now, it's slightly different from the coalition program that we have here in the U.S., but it's also different in terms of maturity. So it's been out there for 24 years. And after 20 years, we now have a market in Canada where 60% of our transactions are through Air Miles. So we're able to talk to and interact with 60% of our consumers up there. So we know what it looks like.
You're really sandbagging here, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah. But recognizing it's been there over 20 years. Okay. And so we've been in here 5 years. And we're still in that single digit piece, but we also know that we're putting in some major changes with an earn on fuel offer every day in all markets. So, and then putting in a big media plan to build awareness, and then bringing in our site staff to actually do the conversion. And you put those three new pieces on top of it, we think we can actually escalate that kind of road or curve that you would have to getting into the types of penetration rates that you have up in Canada. All right, so we'll actually, after 6 or 7 years, we'll probably be at or above the road that we were on in Canada after 6 years.
Well, we love our Canadian fans on this show. There's lots of renegades up there, so I think that's a perfect place for us to just take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the media choices that Dan made and some of the more innovative, we'll call them renegade thinking, that they brought to the table. So stay with us.
Renegade Thinkers Unite is brought to you by Social Media Explorer, the website that explores the world of social media from the inside out. Great advice from today's leading social media columnists and experts at socialmediaexplorer.com. That's socialmediaexplorer.com. You've been listening to another great interview on Renegade Thinkers Unite with Drew Neiser. But the value doesn't end there. As a listener, you can download a free ebook from Drew, Renegade Thinkers, interviews with 11 trailblazing CMOs any business can learn from, top marketing thought leaders and proven executives from Time Warner, American Express, and Chico's, and others. Get your free copy at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook. For listeners only, at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook.
All right, we're back, and my guest is Dan Little, head of North American marketing for Shell Retail. We've been talking about what I'm going to call a very ambitious loyalty program. One of the things that you and I talked about, Dan, before the show was that what you learned in the pilot about simplifying the message, and that it was important to simplify it not just for the consumer, but also for the folks that are sharing that message at every gas station. Talk about how simple you got this message.
Yeah, I mean, we did a number of things differently this time, Drew. Number one, we generally work with one, maybe two agencies on the creative, and this time we brought in over 7 and some new agencies we haven't worked with, and brief them and let them come in and pitch the different ideas about how do you take something new and big. Take a program that's been out there 5 years. Add these 2 or 3 new big innovations on top of it, and how do you make it simple and really big and something that will actually catch hold? And so bringing in a lot of agencies or more agencies was the first big change. After we worked through the different concepts that were coming through and worked through a series of consumer research phases, then we went out into the marketplace. And I think the feedback that we were getting, it was just as important, the feedback we were getting from the consumers at the sites, as it was the feedback we were getting from our retail staff, the cashiers and the site staff, on how well how excited they got about the concept, how well they could explain it, what motivated them, what felt really, really high perceived value to them. And so over a number, and we were actually out in pilot for over 6 months, over a number of iterations, we came down to the point where, you know what, we don't have to say much more than instant gold status. I mean, so many loyalty programs, consumers understand it. It's self-evident. There are tiers. Gold status is usually the highest or one of the highest. And I get something when I get gold status that generally I have to earn, and it's of value. And we say, well, come join our program. It's free, and you get instant gold status. And then we tell them, oh, and by the way, all the other things you get, guess what? You also get 5 cents a gallon off fuel at Shell every day for doing nothing else but joining the loyalty program for free. Once we get them in on that basis, then we can start the CRM campaign to explain to them about the other ways that they can earn. I mean, we have Fuel Reward members that are earning $1,000 a year in fuel rewards, all right? So there's a lot of ways to do it, but you can't explain them all and then get someone to convert because you lose them, right? So we get them in with instant gold status and 5 cents, and then we educate them. And we train them in the different ways to enhance their experience and the value they get out of the program.
So several thoughts that before we move on. One, very interesting that you brought in all these agencies. I'm sorry that we didn't know each other. I'm sure you would have want to have Renegade on your list when you look at this next time. But the other thing, as I was thinking, as we're having this conversation, one of the chapters in my book, The CMO's Periodic Table, features a gentleman by the name of Terry Lee. And at the time, not the time that I talked to him, but he launched the first loyalty program for a company called Tesco. At the time, they were number 2. They went on to become number 1. He risked 25% of the profits of the company, which relates to what, and then he became CEO and chairman and eventually was knighted. So there's a lot of good things for you to look forward to, Dan, assuming this works. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, that's not a question. That's a comment, an opportunity for you. Having created this, the loyalty program, I thought it was kind of cool that you guys are on Snapchat. You did a Facebook Live from India, the Indy 500. Talk a little bit about some of the social programs and things that you're doing to reach a younger target.
Yeah, I mean a couple things. A number of them, but one of the things is trying to get out there and build awareness very quickly and get some influencers, get some people that can evangelize. And so bloggers are a big part of how we're doing that on social. Now, we've always used bloggers with our fuels programs and introducing a new fuel and with our loyalty programs in the past, but because we didn't have this kind of big, universal, relevant value proposition, the instant gold and the 5 cents off every day, it was hard to get traction. And so with this now, we've got a new set of bloggers. We've built a lot of new great creative to give them, a lot of material and content, as well as incentives and contests, along with referral programs with bonuses so that this thing can really kind of generate additional friends and family into the program beyond just their reach. So that's one of the things that we're doing with social. We're really excited about it.
From a program standpoint, how many bloggers are we talking about?
Well, I mean, upwards of 100 are in target, but we tier them based on their reach. And we're working with the first set, the first 10 or 20 that have the big reach right now, and really making sure that we've got the programs right and then rolling them out to the next tiers, et cetera.
Interesting. That's an interesting way to do it. We've sort of done it the opposite, where you start with the small guys who are more grateful and excited about doing it, and then working our way up once we've proved it out. But either way, that's a lot of bloggers to manage. Do you have any insights in terms of lessons learned in terms of getting working with bloggers to get them to sort of feel good about what they're doing and help you move the cause along?
I mean, I think it's about content and value that they can provide their followers, and exciting content, right? So, we with every iteration, we're trying to get more creative and maybe a bit more edgier in our content, and we're trying to keep it fresh and new. And of course, the more you're on the social platforms, the more you recognize how important that is. So that's one thing, and then the other is value, and so providing their followers with special offers for becoming instant gold status beyond just the 5 cents is important to them, as well as contest. So for instance, the top 10 bloggers each month, you get a $100 gift card, etc., that they can provide to out to their followers. So yeah, I think it's value and exciting content that they're looking for.
Yeah, it's as a blogger and with the Social Media Explorer and other places, it's like, if you can provide us interesting content, we are all ears, because you've made our lives easier. So that's a smart insight.
Renegade Thinkers Unite is brought to you by Social Media Explorer, the website that explores the world of social media from the inside out. Great advice from today's leading social media columnists and experts at socialmediaexplorer.com. That's socialmediaexplorer.com.
You're also doing television, and I want to make this point because I've seen a lot of articles that TV is dead, it's all about digital, and I want to make a point in a lot of private conversations that I've had with chief marketing officers in retail and in travel. A couple of them put all their dollars into digital, shifted out of television, their awareness dropped, their sales dropped, they rushed back into television. And you guys are pretty heavily weighted in television for this program, and maybe you could explain why you believe that TV continues to deliver value.
Well, I mean, the TV is about reach, right? And so over the past 5 years, as we've marketed the Fuel Rewards program at Shell, before we had this big earn-on fuel offer in instant gold status, we were almost exclusively radio, and that would be local spot radio, and digital, because we could be targeted and we could measure it. And we're looking for conversion and acquisition of members. But we're not going to get to the levels of scale that we're talking about in penetration of the loyalty program, 2 and 3x of where we are, just by that. Because frankly, the further we acquire a new member, the further away from our site or our cash register, right, the lower the activity rates are. And so really, to drive your ROI, you need to get people close to the site. And so you say, okay, well, what's the role of TV then? Okay, well, the TV piece, the expectation isn't that you see 1 or 2 of the Shell TV spots for instant gold status and go online, and many will, okay, just like we saw with radio or anything else. But it's about building that awareness through TV with that reach, building the awareness of what Fuel Rewards and instant gold status is, so that awareness can be converted to acquisition at the Shell sites via our Shell staff and the devices and the rewards and incentives we've given them to participate to convert you at the site.
It's all about, it's about making sure you have this broad message when we're talking about a mass brand, and then making sure that, the folks on the local level are aware of it. Now, one of the clever things that you did is also, it's not just about where the media is, but it's also the message. And your message, I thought was interesting. And this was a first for you, right? You talk about what you're doing with your initial advertising. And the TV's ads, that is.
Well, I think if people think about the Shell advertising they've seen in the past, it's almost exclusively been focused on our fuels products. Maybe it's Shell nitrogen-rich gasolines or Shell V-Power Nitro Plus, and it's about the product and it's the benefits and cars and performance. This is the first time with this program where we're featuring the Shell site and the Shell site staff, the cashiers and the attendants, as the heroes of the creative, of the storyline, as they convert customers to instant gold status and what it feels like both for the customer and for the site staff. And so it's simply, very, very visually and simply, and I think with some humor and some excitement, communicates how simple the program is and how rewarding the program can be. But it also sets an aspirational view of what the site staff's role is, and it sets them up as the hero. So it's as much aimed at the end consumer as it is the site staff themselves, and we're getting great response on this. The network, the wholesalers, the distributors, the dealers, the site staff, really love this kind of nod towards their role and their value in the customer experience.
Absolutely. I mean, you're making them the hero. It's not about the gasoline anymore. It's about the employees helping their customers. It's really a smart approach, particularly when you don't control the experience. And I just reminded of years ago, and I know this predates even your time at Shell, but there was a campaign that an agency called Wells Rich Green did. I think it was Sunoco, and it was "We can be very friendly, yes we can," and it was gas station attendants singing, which was hilarious. But what happened was that these gas station attendants ended up becoming more friendly because the ads said they were friendly and they were suggestible, and it's just celebrating essentially your brand experience. In this case, your folks in the field seems to pay out, and so smart thinking there, because certainly multiple birds, one stone. So. All right. So if we look at this program and we were trying to sort of wrap up some of the lessons that you learned that might be of service to other marketers, what do you think are sort of some of the key insights from having piloted this and now rolled it out nationally?
Well, I mean, for us, it was about building broad awareness. It was about converting at the site and getting our site staff involved in it. But stepping back from that, the loyalty program in general, because we've been on this journey for 5-6 years now, I mean, it really requires a top-down commitment in strategy and philosophy, from executive management down. And so without that, you're not going to stay on the journey that it takes to build the membership base, to invest in the BI, the technical platform, to bring in the partners. It's just not going to hold. And I think the second piece is we've had to become even better at partnering. All right, meaning using technology and loyalty partners and agencies, but also reaching out to other brands and finding where we can cross-promote and cross-sell and add value to their engagements with their consumers and bring their consumers into our fold and become Instant Gold members. So I'd say top-down commitment in philosophy. It's a culture here. And I think also skills in partnering. You can't do this with an internal view.
Those are really great insights, and I think they apply to any number of situations. And I'm going to attempt to summarize this. I mean, we started with a well-defined and target that not only is well-defined but easy to understand. You pilot tested so you could sort of work the kinks out and figure out that how to simplify the message that resonated both with the primary audience and the secondary audience, which is important, I think, in any sort of retail operation, but frankly, with any brand that has any kind of experience that involves some kind of a person. The notion of bringing in more partners to broaden your perspective is savvy, and certainly as an agency here representing the agency land, that's the kind of thing we welcome. And then I love the fact that you guys have been at this a while. And I think the key with a program like this is that it takes time, and you don't get it right necessarily the first time, or you don't get it perfect. And I think when you're talking about something like loyalty, for those folks, I've talked about this brand, How Brands Grow, changing loyalty is really hard, changing the way, because people's behaviors are so entrenched. So if you're going to try to change loyalty, you better do something really big and really bold. And I suspect Instant Gold status is that way. That's why I've already downloaded the app. I look forward to saving my 5 cents on every gallon at the gas station, the Shell station at 96th and First Avenue in Manhattan. So, Dan, thank you so much for being on Renegade Thinkers Unite.
Drew, it's been a pleasure. It's been exciting. I enjoyed the conversation.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.